GNASS. Two degenerates, both sides of the border. John Santino. Alex Lacasse. The Great North American Sports Show. We're back, and it's another live edition of GNASS. Alex, how you feeling today from Toronto?
Not too great, John, and I'm sure we'll get into why, but it's it's not good in the Leprechaun Kingdom, that's for sure.
Well, that's good to hear. It's nothing to do with the Canadian weather, which was beautiful.
It is beautiful up here. The Canadian cold shield might be a little overrated. It is the day before June after all, but
I mean, it does.
Nonetheless.
I know it turns out that summer's pretty nice up here, right? But I mean, Alex, you did make a good point. The C's are out, and we have an NBA Finals, which is Denver versus Miami. But let's rewind for a second because
we don't have to.
I think we do, man. The C's had a chance at history. We kind of have to at this point.
Yeah, they did have a chance at history, but as we've seen with this team, they are just not mentally tough, and I was right not to trust them. I just had the team that they were going to lose to wrong. And that was doesn't make me feel better if they pushed this to game 7. Like, well, they made a kind of sort of history, but this was a team that was built to win a championship, John. And we look back to the Warriors lost last year. What did we say they were missing? They were missing playmaking, a guy who could create their own shot. They bring in Malcolm Brogdon, which I was in favor of the move because they gave up nothing for him. But he was nowhere to be found for most of the conference finals. And I think the biggest takeaway for me is Tatum tweaks his ankle on the first play of the game, the first possession of the game.
Like, heart stopping if you're a C's fan. That was like it looked like he landed very rough.
So he was definitely battling through it. So this isn't on Jason Tatum. I mean, so the first person you have to look at is Jaylen Brown. Like, Jaylen Brown wants to be considered this. He thinks this is a partnership between him and Tatum. And I've been a believer in all along that it's kind of it should be a partnership and that they're more peers and equals as opposed to like a kind of a Batman Robin scenario. And Jaylen Brown didn't show up. He had more turnovers than points, or more turnovers than made baskets, I should say.
Well, let's start with the game. So obviously, like you said, Jason Tatum twists his ankle on the first possession of the game. Like, he lands on, I think it was it Vincent?
It was. I don't think he landed on his foot. I think his just
no. I meant the player though.
No, I think Tatum landed just on the side of his foot. It wasn't directly on anyone.
But yeah, Tatum goes down, a little scary, not collision, but landing there. And of course, even though he goes down, eventually comes back in the game. It was a bit of a tentative start. Felt like both teams were feeling each other out very early.
Yeah, it was definitely a sloppy first quarter, and the Celtics got out to a 5-point lead. They were moving the ball, they were attacking the basket, and they just started firing up the threes. And
it felt like a lot of threes.
They were all like, it's just, they played too tight at home. He would lose three conference final games at home. Like, you're not a championship basketball team. It's so good. Credit to Miami, but this is on the Celtics. And again, here we're saying it's the same old story with this team.
Okay, so let's start with this though. So they pulled out to a 5-point lead, like you said. It felt like they were struggling to generate runs against Miami, especially like throughout this game without Jason Tatum at 100%. I mean, how did you feel about the Celtics' general game plan going in this? Because eventually we know that they started firing way more threes than they should have, but how'd you feel about how they attacked the basket early and then how it progressed?
They just stopped playing, and it's almost stupid to say that, like, oh, the Celtics thought that they were going to win a 48-minute basketball game based on what they did for the first half and the first quarter, but that's almost how they treat. That felt like is exactly how they treated this, and that's not going to get it done in a game 7 especially when you're trying to make history. It was a hard watch, John.
It got to be a hard watch as time went on, because I mean, I felt like the Miami defense, like, they just kept up the intensity throughout the game. It didn't matter who they put in. Like, we saw a huge performance from Caleb Martin on both ends of the floor, like hitting big threes.
And Highsmith gave us some good minutes in the first half too. I guess my issue is the Celtics weren't ready to play. And then it's the same, like, I think the playoffs are more an opportunity to show exactly who you are. And the Celtics were a front running jump shooting basketball team all season. And
I find that a bit ludicrous though, with a team with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. Like, to think you're gonna shoot your way via 3-pointers to a championship is ridiculous, Alex.
right, they're not the Golden State Warriors. The Warriors are really the only team that's done that. And unfortunately, the coach, and he preaches this, but I'm like, well, apparently he's untouchable. At least this offseason.
You're telling me that just having a chance at history but not executing saved him his job?
Yeah, I think so. But also, he had his extension was for 3 years at.
That's fair.
And we know one thing about Wyc Grousbeck is he hates having dead money. He hates having to pay dead money to coach. Like, he made Brad Stevens a GM for fuck's sake, because he lost the locker room, but he didn't want to have to pay him the money that was left on his contract, so he just made him a GM, and to, I guess, mixed results at this point.
So, I mean, it was a tough watch, Alex, and like we said, as time went on, Celtics just launching at threes. But what do you think the team needs to do to improve? Because I mean, we've seen them come up short, excuse me, time and time again. And I mean, I'm getting a little bit of flashbacks here because I feel like I'm talking about the Leafs to a degree, but I mean, you guys are a little bit more successful than us. But time and time again, it just feels like the Celtics come up short. And I mean, you said it yourself. The core of this team is Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Is it time to look at a move for one of those guys, or like, what would you do with the roster here? Because I know your normal target man is that bitch Marcus Smart.
Yeah, and so I've been one of the presidents, of the Jaylen Brown fan club.
Yeah, but
he looked exposed last night, to say the very least, and on a night when you really needed him most, and he would be in line to be the highest paid player in the NBA. And we say life happens fast in the NBA, and I think Jaylen Brown saw his NBA life happening very fast before his eyes. His conference finals, you get outplayed by freaking Caleb Martin. That's
a tough luck.
That's a problem. Like, Andrew Wiggins is one thing, and the Warriors, like, with the pedigree, but like Caleb Martin, the Heat, they play hard. Like, don't get, like, credit to them that they play hard on every possession.
And also, Tyler Hero was not playing.
And Tyler Hero wasn't playing. And the Celtics they don't value possessions. They don't value the basketball. Like, so they certainly got what they deserved. And if Jaylen Brown thinks he's going to get paid $295 million this offseason, I don't know if that payday is in the cards based on his conference finals performance.
So what do you do to improve this team then? Do you entertain a trade for a guy like Jaylen Brown?
I mean, anything's on the table, right?
You know he's going to demand the super max.
Everything's on the table right now. And granted, they do have Brown for one more year. If it's me, I need to see what this looks like without Marcus Smart. I think Derek White proved that he's invaluable to this team in what he brings to the table.
Bucket in Game 6.
Exactly. And more on that in Alex's adventures north of the border. It's a very special segment before we wrap up with the Generous Corner, of course. But, John, I need to see what this looks like without Marcus Smart, because while I think Marcus Smart can play a role for a team, he can, since he considers himself the older statesman on this roster, and he has the ego that tells him that he's Gary Payton.
It was fucking hairs.
He's Gary Payton on defense, and he's Pistol Pete Maravich on offense. And John, I wish I had the confidence in a fingernail in Marcus Smart's fingernails worth of confidence in anything that I set out to do in life, but he's not that. He's a role player, and that's what he is. He's a fine role player. But how valuable is a role player who doesn't understand his role is what I always go back to. And so I need to see what it looks like without him.
That's fair. So that's the addition by subtraction method. But what would you be looking for? Now, this is not what you'd be looking for like Marcus Smart or Jaylen Brown. Like, what would you want the Celtics to acquire to like push the needle forward, I should say? Because we saw him get Malcolm Brogdon, who's like a borderline all-star.
I need
a ball handler who can shoot.
I need like an active big. How about that? Because how much longer are we going to rely on Al Horford's legs?
Rob Williams. but also kind of
who has a very, very checkered injury history.
that's why I said
So
but fantastic player though.
I like Rob. I like his talent, but this year kind of felt like he was stuck in neutral, and because he didn't shoot the three, and so was it the injuries and managing that. Was it his lack of 3-point shooting ability that Joe Mazzulla doesn't like, or some combination of the two? And that's why he really never felt like he got going during the playoffs. Versus like when he's right and he's a weapon for the Celtics, that's for sure on defense. So I'm a broken man, John. I'm
familiar with the feeling.
It's not just that loss. You spot Miami the two first games at home, and again, as we mentioned on the short yesterday, like I'm Dante in the Clerks. Like I wasn't supposed to even be here yesterday, and so that's what that game 7 was last night. And so it was just kind of like this slow. I just let go. I really did, and the Celtics need to do some real soul searching, because this is the year that Bill Russell left this mortal shell, and he's the greatest winner in team sports, on this continent. And this team couldn't play like Pride when they needed to. And that's I'm no big Joe Mazzulla fan, but like this is on the players, and
I think it's ultimately on the players. Like how many years you guys been going at this? What, like
right? And so if Jaylen Brown wants to be a Cowboy with the max contract, then he's really then he's going to be the baddest MFer in the saloon, and he wasn't last night.
I think if he demands a super max and you're, I guess, be Brad Stevens at this point, I think you have to like entertain a trade.
You're definitely entertaining.
You have to entertain a trade. Like it doesn't mean you accept it, but I think you at least have to entertain it, especially because you look at a team in flux like the Raptors. Like you could get a bunch of pieces, like maybe someone who you think is equivalent to Jaylen. And I'm not saying that because I want the Raptors to get Jaylen Brown. I just feel like that's a team that has a lot to offer. Like another one would be maybe potentially a team like Portland or.
Yeah, I don't even know what I want at this point. Does guards always lose a step, and yes, Lillard's the hungry superstar, but
no, my point is teams with assets. That's all.
No, for sure. And I don't know, man. It's a
dejected
Celtics
fan.
Right no, we always say teams don't recover from you either come back from these significant losses, or it ruins your program for decades, and it feels like the Celtics are teetering on the ladder there.
It's to quote everyone who assessed the Maple Leafs after they lost in Game 5. It's time. Yeah, make some changes.
It's time. That's for damn sure.
But Alex, let's move on. I think that's enough dwelling on some pain for you. You look pretty dejected, man. So let's try to get some good energy going, man. So we have the NBA Finals coming up on Thursday.
John, don't you know nobody wants to talk about the Nuggets? I know. no. We're not that program. We are talking Nuggets.
We're gonna have to, but no, I'm kidding.
We love Nuggets.
All right, but we do have the NBA Finals coming on Thursday. Like you said, the Denver Nuggets, the Miami Heat. Alex, where do you want to start with this one?
Yeah, so if had the Celtics pulled off that win last night, I would tell you just to pound the overs in every game in this series, because neither the Celtics nor Nuggets were going to play defense. This is a contrast of styles, and it feels like they just beat my team and all, but how much longer can Miami do this with smoke and mirrors, really? And it
also with Tyler Hero not 100%.
Tyler Hero's cleared for basketball activities,
he's cleared, but he's not 100%.
Well, it's a hand, so like obviously he was doing conditioning, like he was in the pool. It's not like he like lost his wind.
I get that.
I mean, it's different going up, playing at altitude for your first game back. That's for sure.
I think if he comes back, Miami's fine, but like if you go back to Miami down 0-2, you're in shit, man. Like
you're in trouble. I mean, I think the Nuggets, they've tended to lose focus similar in kind of a similar fashion to the Celtics, even though I think they have a real adult leader in Jokic on that team, and Murray's a real gamer, so I like their personnel. I like KCP. I like Michael Porter.
The depth on the Nuggets is crazy.
They have good depth, and they have real versatility, that's kind of how Miami gets by, because they have a lot of interchangeable parts. And so I think this is where the magic ends for Miami. I think Denver's just a bad matchup for him, John. Where are you at for this?
I agree completely. Like I think you're right. Like it would be more of an overs matchup if the Celtics made it. To a lot of your points, Celtics like to score points, don't really like to prevent them though. Miami is different. You said that we said this a lot while we were watching Game 7. Miami doesn't allow a lot of streaks. They seem like they bring the intensity a lot every defense,
but they have to win ugly.
And that's what I mean. Like they bring a lot of intensity. Like they're a gritty team, and like
it's not like it's not like this. It's not like Miami played great last night. The Celtics just played like complete.
No, they played like they're bad. They're real bad. They got smoked, and that's just the reality of the situation. But one thing with Miami is as good as Bam Adebayo is, I don't see him as a good matchup for Nikola Jokic. And I think Jokic is going to abuse Miami in the series. He's been resting. The rest of the Nuggets are getting healthy. Like,
yeah, let Jokic just stand in the paint and create from there.
Like, what Adebayo is going to be in foul trouble all series, and taking him out is a huge detractor on Miami. Like, he's such a key player for Miami, and I don't see a way that Miami, to your point, like they've been surviving on Magic. I get Tyler Hero could come back and shoot the lights out, but I just see Nikola Jokic is just too much of a force in this series. And like we said, wings for days on the Nuggets. They can defend everything that Miami can throw at them. And Jimmy Butler looks like he's starting to run on fumes these last couple of games, especially. And
yeah, so I think that first half at altitude in Denver, those like in games 1, game 2, granted he will be a little more acclimated, after game 1. But if the Nuggets can really pour it on them in the first half, it might even be a short series because Miami. I don't think Miami has the horse to compete on offense.
That's more what I'm thinking because like Miami's been in these like slugfest matchups, and I don't know if they have it in them to just go one more. I mean, like they're the more seasoned team. They've seen a lot of City Miles, man, and I know they want it, and they're a good program, but I think this is Denver's year.
This is, like this is where talent usually trumps, the salt, an inferior team at some point in the playoffs. Saying it didn't happen. It didn't happen for the Heat. I mean, you could say that you can argue the Heat were better than their first and second. Well, not the Bucks. Excuse me.
I was gonna say the Bucks.
No, not the Bucks. Yeah, the Bucks didn't show up either. But yeah, they got a pass after the way the Celtics blew that the conference finals. But yeah, arguably the Heat were better than the Knicks, but the talent thing didn't hold against the Celtics. But I think the Nuggets have a real coach. Yeah, I mean, Pazula is not a real coach. You can't just say, all right, we just need to take a lot more threes than the other opponent, and then we'll be fine. That's not how basketball works. So I think they have a real coach. They have a lot of hungry guys. They have some championship pedigree. KCP has a ring. So it's hard not to like the Nuggets in this series.
It's really like, especially that matchup with Jokic. Like I again, like, what do you do? Like you can't even hack Shaq anymore, man. It just don't work.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, it makes his free throws. That's for sure. Nothing else.
Alex.
Well, John, I was gonna say, we're out here in Toronto, and this country's favorite sport is hockey, if I'm not mistaken.
It is.
I haven't seen too much enthusiasm for the Stanley Cup Finals while I've been up here. What gives?
There's been a lot of people are deflated after the Leafs loss, and on top of that, man, like the matchup.
I mean, you don't get a kick out of you Canadians don't get a kick out of watching hockey in America's Sunbelt.
Bitch, do I look like Gary Bettman? Like actually though, like it felt like as soon as all the big teams, all the I wouldn't say primary superstars because Matthew Tkachuk is pretty dirty, but it just felt like all the steam fell out of the playoffs once we lost McDavid, once we lost the Leafs, the Rangers are gone, like Hurricanes, like all the fun teams aren't in it anymore.
This feels Mickey Mouse.
It does. It feels very Mickey Mouse because even though Vegas is cool and I love Vegas and I want them to win the series, like it's like the fact that they're an expansion team and they're not even like pushed as this big team, and they should be in a lot of respects. I mean, they're a fantastic program, the first and
I
one.
think some credit because they were the first team to go to Vegas, and the community has really accepted them. And there's this whole, carnival atmosphere at these Vegas games. Even though I don't know if you've seen, I don't know if you've been to a Vegas night games on your Vegas nights out there, but
not yet. But I want to go.
I'm curious, like how transient the crowd is relative.
Apparently sick, but and Vegas knows how to put on a show. That's for sure. But like to your point about being a Sunbelt game, man, like it's just like you don't feel the buzz, and it's like you saw when we watched Game 7, like the Dallas Stars and Vegas Golden Knights were on one TV from the start, and the Celtics were on.
And they played the TNT audio feed in the restaurant.
Yeah, every single TV had the basketball on. So, I mean, you're definitely seeing where the city's head's at, especially where the playoffs have gone in the NHL.
All right, so who do you like in the series?
Which one?
The Stanley Cup Finals, John.
Ooh, Florida.
All of Canada is waiting on your pick.
Yeah, unfortunately, but Florida's who I like because I think Sergei Bobrovsky is on fire right now. And we know that Sergei Bobrovsky has two modes, pylon and best goalie in the league. And he's looking like best goalie in the league right now. Matthew Tkachuk is just a player who's built to be the best player in the playoffs. And he's been exactly that, dominating every shift for the Florida Panthers. They're a team, like I said, they're not built for the regular season. They do a lot of clutching and grabbing, penalties type stuff. Well, that shit flies in the playoffs, Alex. So it's going to be a fun series regardless because Vegas is no pushover of a team, but I just don't trust the revolving door goaltender strategy. And I know that Aiden Hill's played well, in all respect to Vegas, and I love what they've done out there. But yeah, I just don't see it happening like south of Alex Pietrangelo, basically doing what he did to Leon Draisaitl, but more injuring Matthew Tkachuk with that baseball slash.
Right. And certainly, we support teams with strong goaltenders in the playoffs, and that's obviously been Bobrovsky. And so I guess I was going to ask you, should Florida win this and he stands on his head all series, does he have a chance of stealing the Conn Smythe from his teammate Matthew Tkachuk, or is that mostly wrapped up?
100% he does. Like, I actually think Bobrovsky, in terms of voting, would probably be the favorite at this point, just because of how many games have gone deep. And like, for example, that Leaf series, like, they're wrong. Game 3, the Leafs were total pushovers. Game 1, they should have been a little bit like, I don't think they put in the issue was effort. It was more attention to detail in Game 1. That's why the series was just everything that was wrong with the Leafs. But in that series, he still put up like 35, 40, and then the final game, 50 saves.
Mm-hmm.
And that just continued in the next series when they swept Carolina. And it's at the point where if you're a voter, and Alex, to your point, we know how valuable goaltending is in the playoffs. So,
but if Tkachuk goes off, then he obviously takes it.
Oh yeah, if Tkachuk goes off.
So that's probably a safe bet. I'm sure if Tkachuk's not the favorite, then that might be still some value there as a Conn Smythe winner.
Tkachuk would have had value probably until maybe now not so much because like the final set, but probably before the final set you get like amazing value on it, probably.
If Vegas wins the series, how do they do it?
That's tough.
Do they win it a shootout, or do they pack it in around their goalie get hot, stand on his head?
Well, they're going to need solid goaltending, obviously, from Aiden Hill, who is their de facto starter right now. Apologize, I was losing the words there. But they're going to need Jack Eichel to continue being exactly what he has been. They're going to need him to dominate the offensive flow of the game. They're going to need him to keep putting up points. And I mentioned Pietrangelo for negative reasons because he took a baseball swing at Leon Draisaitl. But the fact of the matter is he's one of the best. Yeah, he's one of the best defensemen in the game. He eats big minutes up like it's nothing. And him and Shea Theodore, if they're playing 30 minutes a night at their best, like it's going to be hard for Florida to match that. But Brandon Montour and Aaron Ekblad are no pushovers themselves. They've been fantastic this playoffs. They've been basically changing out for each other every shift. Obviously, Aaron Ekblad a little bit more power, Montour a little bit more smooth. But hey, man, I think Florida's going to win the series, but I think it's going to be a lot closer than people think. I don't think Florida keeps rolling the way they have in these last couple series.
Yeah, it seems like these teams are pretty well even, at least goaltending aside.
Yeah, for sure. And one part about Florida making it, though, that I will say is my prediction was true. A team from the Atlantic made it.
Yeah, there you go.
It just wasn't any of the ones we thought.
Any of the ones that were expected to do it.
Alex, where you want to go from here, man?
Oh, boy. Well, are we gonna? I thought we were gonna talk about all the fun we've been having. Now that we've reunited live here on GNASS north of the border.
You did tease it on yesterday's show. Let's dive into a couple stories. What do you feel like sharing with our beautiful listeners?
I'll say this: Toronto is a very clean city, or at least the downtown areas where I've stayed, and people mostly friendly. Only one person has tried to fight me this entire time we've been here, John.
Well,
we'll back up. We were watching Game 6 at a local watering hole. We'll leave the out of there because we want to thank them because their staff handled this crazed Toronto denizen in a very professional manner, and
had a fantastic
saw him out and onto the rest of his night. And our bartender wearing a very cool throwback Vancouver Grizzlies had a great mustache and took care of us all night. What's the neighborhood that establishment's in case people find themselves wandering these Fair City streets?
Well, one thing I can mention is it's right near St. Lawrence Market.
Oh yes, by the St. Lawrence Market. That's your landmark. It's highly rated by National Geographic. As I've come to find out about a lot of things in this great land, and how universally loved they are across the globe.
Alex, see, we should have gone back to that bar for Game 7 because Celtics were undefeated until that point.
I jokingly told that person after he was fixing for fights with anyone that was rooting for the Celtics, and I told him that we might see each other on Monday.
He was following someone around, like wearing green with his camera, dude. That guy was just asking for trouble.
Yeah, a freaking raging psychopath. Everybody else were normal. They don't look anything like the South Park cartoons. In case some people
we don't have flapping heads.
No flapping heads. Anything. Everybody says process. That's been the earwig for me across this great city. But I just in general, I think Canada is just like. It is I guess it's practical compassion, right? We just had a global pandemic. Let's just make COVID tests available for people. That's the least we can do as a society, right? As a friend from my 9 to 5 job, the reason why I'm up here is staying after a conference, and he called the United States the loud neighbor to the South, and in that's such a place. Children get murdered in schools, or people get shot in grocery stores, and we don't do anything about it because why would we? Because freedom and yada yada. But anyways, no, I've had a lovely time in Canada, and thank you for the hospitality, John. Unfortunately, I just can't gamble here, which brings us into Degenerate's Corner.
Well, sometimes she goes, sometimes it does. She didn't go. That's the way she goes.
22 black, 22 black. Ass, son of a bitch.
Fucking way she goes, he said.
Oh, no, why did I bet the company payroll? Oh, Gil's in a lot of trouble.
Can the boys beat the number? We'll find out on Degenerate's Corner.
That's the way she goes, buddy. Fucking way she goes.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, Alex, you cannot use your normal provider, which is DraftKings, because we are in Canada, but that means we can get our odds from one of Canada's providers today, of course, being our unofficial partners at the Score Bet. Alex, what do you have for your best bet today on Degenerate's Corner, our first all-Canadian edition?
Yes, unfortunately, this is more of just a suggestion, a number that I like. I will not be playing this because I am geographically prohibited from doing it by my quasi-monopolistic sports book. He
also is too cheap to buy a VPN. That's what he doesn't want.
Yeah, well, don't say VPN and the name in it together. My buddy got in trouble doing that. But a number that I really like is, and I kind of mentioned this, I don't know if the Heat are going to be ready for the altitude and the speed of the Nuggets to start. So I'm going to look to get in, get out. I would look to get in, get out in the first half. So I like the Nuggets in the first half. They're laying 4.5. Everything is juiced on the Nuggets, so that usually tells you that the book is hedging that the Nuggets could roll in this game, and there's a really nasty trend against teams that play a 7-game playoff series that next round. They're not always ready to go, and they usually don't cover in that game 1 of the next round.
Fatigue, man. Fatigue is a factor.
Where are you going for your best bet?
Well, that's why I mentioned fatigue, because it plays a factor in my best bet. So I'm going to the Stanley Cup final. I'm going to take Florida on the money line at plus 110. Now, I know Florida is the visiting team. That's why they're the underdogs. But plus 110 is good money for Florida, man. They've been sitting at home resting. I mean, Sergei Bobrovsky, he's needed a break with how much rubber he's faced.
I have made money playing Florida on the money line in the closeout games against Boston and Toronto.
I mean, fair play. But the fact of the matter is, I think they keep it rolling game 1. Like I said, I think this series goes a bit longer than the last couple for Florida, but I do think they're the favorites here in the Stanley Cup final. And I mean, like we said, Vegas is coming off a battle with Dallas. Dallas did not want to go down. I mean, I know they got stomped in that last game, but 6 games nonetheless. Alex, do you want to give a parlay with our unofficial partners, or?
I am going to be on load management till I return to my humble home in the Shire, John. But I think people really want a long shot on this live edition here of GNASS.
So I will give it to them. First, we are looking, of course, back to game 1, but we're going to look at the other side of the coin this time. Jack Eichel, like I said, superstar. He's been on fire. He's showing us what he's all about these playoffs. I'm going to get Jack Eichel to get a point in this game. We're going to go to the NBA Finals then. Of course, Nikola Jokic, like we said, the man himself. I'm going to take him over 27.5 points in this game. And then to finish out the parlay, we're going to do a double in the FA Cup Final. The FA Cup Final is a special one, Alex. The Manchester Derby, City versus United.
Not just a derby, ladies and gentlemen, a derby.
One of the biggest matchups in all of soccer, and it's going to be a good one because, like I said, FA Cup Final, domestic cup, everyone's riled up, but I'm going to take City to win this one on the money line. Manchester City is probably, under Pep Guardiola, the most dominant side potentially that we've ever seen in his tenure in the history of the Premier League. And in addition to that, I'm going to add to the final leg of the parlay, Erling Haaland to score the first goal. Erling Haaland, the Premier League Golden Boot winner. He's fantastic. He does everything. He's going to be the best player in the world if he's not already. And that total parlay gives you plus 1253, Alex.
What constitutes a derby versus a derby?
Really just the pronunciation or where you're from.
Fair enough.
Unfortunately, but
Brits.
I know. Got to do a derby, man. Thank you for watching this live edition of GNASS or listening if you're catching us on Spotify. Like, subscribe, comment. Please hit the bell. Helps the algorithm.
And check out the forthcoming John and Alex Drunken Blue Jays recap for when we get banged up at the Blue Jays on Wednesday night.